Before you this evening is a proposed memorandum of understanding reflecting a settlement in the class action litigation occurring in the United States District Court for the Northern District of Ohio, titled In Re National Prescription Opioid Litigation. You may recall in 2016 and 2017, a consortium of public agencies across the United States filed legal actions against manufacturers and distributors of prescription opioids. The plaintiffs alleged the manufacturers of these opioids grossly misrepresented the risks of long-term use of those drugs on persons with chronic pain, and distributors failed to properly monitor suspicious orders of those prescription drugs, all of which contributed to the current opioid epidemic. All litigation, which was somewhat scattershot across the country, was consolidated by order of the court into one action, or the majority of it into one class action. And all cities in Washington with a population of over 10,000 are participating members of that class action. In the Northern District of Ohio, which was identified as one of the most challenging, difficult, and large populations hit with the opioid litigation or opioid pandemic. During the life of the litigation, the action had splintered as far as resolution is concerned. Purdue Pharmaceuticals, one of the defendants, entered bankruptcy, and claims against that defendant are proceeding separately in bankruptcy court. Claims against certain manufacturers and distributors, Johnson & Johnson, AmerisourceBergen, Cardinal Health, and McKesson, as well as their subsidiaries, affiliates, officers, and directors, have proposed a memorandum of understanding to memorialize a settlement with the public agencies in the state of Washington related to this litigation. Under the memorandum of understanding, cities in Washington, including Port Orchard, would receive monetary allocation of a damages amount, and that money would be used to fund public health districts to fight against opioid problems, as well as to address the public health challenges that have been created by opiate use in the state of Washington. At this point, we do not have an exact number as to the benefit of the MOU, but we are being told by legal counsel representing the class that our settlement is expected to be comparable to that the state of Colorado received, which was approximately $500 million. So optimistically, we'll be receiving that same amount, and that will be allocated to the cities in the state of Washington over this population of 10,000. Including Port Orchard, were you to choose to approve the memorandum of understanding this evening. So the recommendation for you this evening is for you to receive this briefing, and if you so choose, to make a motion to authorize the mayor to execute the memorandum of understanding in this opioid litigation.
Councilmember Cacciardi, go ahead.
Mayor, I move to authorize the mayor to execute the memorandum of understanding in this opioid litigation.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Cacciardi, a second by Councilmember Diener. With any questions or comments for Ms. Archer? Go ahead, Councilmember Diener.
I think we would be remiss as a city not to be a party to the MOU. And so I think it's a good deal, potentially for the city. And also I recall that Charlie read a rather long list of some of the outcomes as a result of funding a couple meetings back. And this money has the potential to go a long ways into treatment of the problem and some of the fallouts of the epidemic. So I support this.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Others wishing to provide any comment before we vote? Hearing none. You'll be voting on the opioid settlement, and all in favor, please say aye.
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 Is there anyone opposed? The settlement has been approved. So we are moving on to item B, adoption of an ordinance accepting a loan from the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund as managed by the Washington State Department of Health for the Well 11 Development, Treatment, and Booster Pump Station project. It says Mr. Dorsey. Oh, look at that. Jackie Brown showed up. All right. And go ahead, Jackie. I bet you're taking the staff report.
Yes, hello, Council, and thanks for your time. This is for the continuation of the Well 11 development, treatment, and booster pump station project. We were notified that we've been awarded $8,080,000 loan. I believe it's at 1%, 20 years, for the continuation of the design and then the actual construction. Hopefully beginning next year. So this is actually an ordinance accepting that loan.
Okay. Thank you, Jack. Thank you, Jackie. Councilmember Lucarelli.
In our report, it says 1.75%. So I'm not sure exactly what the loan interest rate is, but it's low. I move to adopt ordinance number 012-22, authorizing the mayor to execute contract number C058-22 with the Washington State Department of Health and accepting a DWSRF construction loan in the amount of $8,080,000.
Seconded.
A motion by Councilmember Lucarelli and a second by Councilmember Clausen. Just to some background too. Remember this, we had the moratorium for a period of time related to water, and this is one of the items that we need to perform on to satisfy our agreement with the city of Bremerton. And while it doesn't solve all of the problem, it does provide us some additional water capacity as we move away from the 2 shallow aquifer wells that we're utilizing out in the McCormick area. So I see Councilmember Rosapepe has his hand raised.
Just quickly, Mayor, besides thank you to staff for doing the hard work on this, just a reminder to everybody that it's a very low cost loan, and that we need to do this to get our infrastructure up to speed as we entertain the growth that the city's going under. So thank you to staff.
Councilmember Cacciardi.
Yeah, I just wanted to call out what Cindy said just a few minutes ago, the discrepancy between the 1% and the 1.75% in our loan packet, or I'm sorry, in our staff report, but in the contract fact sheet in our packet, it is stated at 1.75%. So I think it's important that we have that exact figure.
Yes, and I apologize for that. I was thinking about the initial pre-construction loan was at 1%, and this one is at 1.75. So thank you for the correction.
Thank you.
And we've gotten a number of loans at 1% lately, so could be easy to mix those up. But thank you for the clarification. Other comments or questions? Councilmember Diener.
I just also want to call out staff and thank them for their good work on this.
We'll be get it designed, finished, and under construction soon. All right, no further questions. You'll be voting to approve an ordinance accepting a loan from the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Hearing none, the ordinance is approved. We're to item C, adoption of a resolution regarding code enforcement abatement action at 515 Perry Avenue North. Ms. Archer, this is you also.
Thank you, Mayor. Council members, before you this evening is adoption of a resolution regarding a code enforcement abatement action occurring at 515 Perry Avenue North. The city has been working diligently on a code enforcement action related to a dangerous structure and associated ongoing public nuisance conditions, including the storage of building materials and trash on the property, which are violations of the Port Orchard Municipal Code. The problem was first identified by staff in June of 2018, and an abatement complaint and notice of hearing were served on the property's owners in May of 2019, with a hearing being held later that month. As a result of that hearing, your Director of Community Development, who serves as your hearing officer for abatement hearings, issued findings of fact and an order demanding compliance and notifying the occupants of the structure to vacate. I want to take this moment to share some photos of the structure so we can all orient ourselves to the condition of the property. These are photos taken in 2021. The condition remains the same. So this is the exterior of the structure. let me back up one step. We'll often see structures that are vacant and that are somewhat dilapidated, that are boarded and adequately secured. The problem becomes once the foundation begins to wear away and the building becomes a danger for collapse. And you'll see that evidenced in some of the photos. You'll also see overgrowth of vegetation that can undermine the stability of the structure as well. And this is evidence of the storage of nuisance materials on the property as well. You'll see a degradation of the retaining wall that supports the rear of the structure, which is on a slope. And here's a close-up of that cracked retaining wall. And further indication of vegetation actually combining and growing into the structure. And more evidence of the continued maintenance of nuisance conditions, including the piling of trash and building materials. So, as a result of the hearing and the order that was issued, the property owners performed some of the required work in 2019. The city issued additional notices, however, when the compliance work was not completed. And at the beginning of 2022, post coming out of the pandemic, the necessary work was not yet completed, and the structure today still remains in a dangerous condition, unfit for human habitation. And as you've noted, or as noted in the photos, the property continues to remain being used for the storage of building materials and trash in violation of the Port Orchard Municipal Code. Storage of trash and building materials is important. It can often lead to rodent infestations and other public health and safety dangers. The city continues to receive complaints regarding the property. So as you are very well aware, the city has the authority to abate nuisances and dangerous buildings and to use public funds for those purposes. And we cite to the relevant RCWs in your staff report, as well as the process laid out in the Port Orchard Municipal Code. So based on the report that you received in the publicly available packet and the photos that you just saw, the code enforcement officer joins me in asking the council to adopt a resolution authorizing the mayor to move forward with legal action against the owners of the real property located at 515 Perry Avenue North. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Councilmember Clausen.
Mr. Mayor, I'm actually pretty excited to take action on this. I think this is just one more example of us working hard to try to beautify our city and make it a better livable area. I know we've been challenged with similar type actions on the water recently. And also we have these situations sporadically around the city. So I'm really grateful for the staff to follow through on these and make sure that we're taking action where appropriate. So with that, Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt a resolution authorizing the mayor or designate to move forward with legal actions against the owners of the real property located at 515 Perry Avenue North for all claims and damages appropriate to remediate the public nuisance conditions and code violations existing on said property.
Second.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Clausen, a second by Councilmember Lucarelli. Any further comments or questions? Really, Councilmember Diener.
I too am excited to see these go away. I know that it's just chipping away at these as best we can. I'm glad that some time ago we set up that revolving fund to take care of issues like this. And so I'm glad that we're taking this and other related actions.
Councilmember Rosapepe.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Not only from the aesthetic value to the city, but also there is a safety and health hazard for people that may go to that structure, especially when they're uninhabited. So I'm all in favor and support of this.
Councilmember Chang.
I agree with the comments before. I also commend staff for following up so diligently. When I first read it, though, I had forgotten about the moratorium because it sounded like the action stopped in 2020. I guess that was due to the moratorium, and then we picked up as soon as we could. The only disappointment I have is that it looks like the only cost recovery would be limited to $2,000, which probably wouldn't cover what we may have put into it.
Yeah.
That is correct. We are circumscribed by statute as to the amount we can recover. But one note, when we've used litigation as a tool, it often is a motivator for voluntary compliance. So that is still a potentiality that the property owner will be motivated by this act.
Councilmember Clausen.
Yeah, and I think it's important that we note for the community that I think the city has gone over and above to try to work with this property owner to abate these issues. And we've been dealing with this since 2018, and we finally reached the end of our patience to get these things taken care of and get them moving. So it's not like we're just coming in with a heavy stick. We want to try to work with property owners, but if you're not going to follow through, then we will. So thank you.
I also think it's important to take this action. It also demonstrates to other property owners that we have code enforcement actions against, that we're serious about this and we're prepared to take this to court if necessary. So, Councilmember Diener.
Charlie, you said this could potentially motivate the landowner to finally do something. Could you talk a little bit about that process? I kind of was under the impression this was it.
Well, no. So in my experience with code enforcement litigation across the state of Washington, once you file the code enforcement action, there's still an opportunity for potential settlement with the property owner and a voluntary resolution. There is always, in my experience, a judge is typically going to give the property owner, regardless of the amount of time you've spent trying to motivate them outside of court, give them additional time to remediate before they give you an order allowing you to go onto the property and remediate. So this isn't the last stop as far as a potential voluntary compliance.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
Absolutely.
Other questions, comments? Okay, you'll be voting on adoption of a resolution regarding a code enforcement abatement action at 515 Perry Avenue North. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Is there anyone opposed? I hear none, so the resolution passes. We're on to item D, adoption of a resolution pertaining to the city's wellness committee and implementation practices, and repealing and replacing resolution 1799. Ms. Lund, this is you.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Council. I'm going to ask Clerk Wallace to bring over Elizabeth Spalding. So I wanted a chance to introduce Elizabeth to the council, and it dawns on me, depending on how you have your view set up, you might not be able to see Elizabeth if she doesn't say something. So
Hi, I'm here.
Okay. Thank you, Elizabeth. Elizabeth joined the Human Resources Department. I stole her from Nick's department back in, I believe it was August of last year. And Elizabeth heads up our wellness committee. So I wanted to be sure to have you recognize Elizabeth for her work that she's doing on behalf of the city related to the wellness committee. And in that regard, we have an agenda item in front of you tonight. The city council established the wellness committee by resolution in 1998. Since 2011, the Association of Washington Cities has credited well cities with a 2% discount on their insurance premiums. And I'm proud to say that Port Orchard has received that Well City Award every year since 2011 and continues to receive that award. Elizabeth headed up those activities last year to earn us that award for this year again. That results in about a $20,000 savings in healthcare insurance premiums. The bulk of that is obviously borne by the city, but the employees save as well. The Wellness Committee is a group of 7 employees, representatives of various city departments, meet regularly. They meet monthly, plan events, promotions, and activities to support the health of the city of Port Orchard employees. And under the leadership of Elizabeth with that committee, she led them through an exercise to kind of review the mission and the goals of the committee in that 1998 resolution. And the committee asked that it be updated to reflect current best practices around employee wellness and the needs and interests of current city employees. So therefore, the agenda item in front of you tonight is a request to update the resolution that governs the activities of the committee by adopting a new resolution to replace the resolution number 1799. And either Elizabeth or I can answer any questions you might have.
Councilmember Diener.
Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt the attached resolution pertaining to the city's wellness committee repealing and replacing resolution number 1799.
Seconded.
We have a motion by Councilmember Diener, a second by Councilmember Trenary. Councilmember Rosa Pepe, do you have a comment or a question?
No, not a question. I'd like to commend the staff for this program, making sure that it happens, because it's a way that it saves the city money and keeps our employees healthy. So well done. And thank you, Elizabeth, for taking this over and continuing the good work.
Thank you, Jay. Councilmember Diener.
And I'll just second that as well. Good work to staff. I know it may seem like herding cats from what I understand, but it's worth it.
Yes, getting everybody to do their health questionnaire is like herding cats. Councilmember Trenary.
Yeah, I want to piggyback on that as well. Anytime we can find ways, no matter how small or how big, to save the city money, it saves our taxpayers, citizens money. That's a job well done. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
All right, other comments or questions? Hearing none, you will be voting, not we, you, on a resolution pertaining to the city's wellness committee and implementation practices. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Is there anyone opposed? Hearing none, the resolution passes. Thank you. We are on to item E now, adoption of a resolution establishing fee schedules for the Departments of Community Development and Public Works. Mr. Bond, this is yours.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, and good evening, members of council. The city periodically updates its adopted fee schedule to ensure that permittees are covering the costs of permit center operations. It's been almost 2 years since the last update to the fee resolution. Many changes have occurred since the last schedule update, including high rates of inflation, changes to the interlocal agreement with South Kitsap Fire and Rescue, the city's use of consultants for building plan review and inspection services, and changes to the ICC building valuation tables. That's International Code Council. The Department of Community Development and Public Works has worked with the city attorney to review and update the city's fee schedule. And this was reviewed last week at your work study meeting, but I'll highlight the significant changes once again. The first major change is the adoption of the February 2022 ICC building valuation table, which is how we base our building permit fees, is based on building valuation. Clarification concerning the timing of fee payments for electronic submittals, adoption of hourly rates for various staff members involved in a project for situations where fees are based on hourly work, an overhaul of the fire permit fee schedule now that these permits are processed by the city under the ILA with South Kitsap Fire and Rescue, updates to the city's refund policies, and changes to our third-party consultant review fees for building and fire code issues, as well as for other services like geotechnical and critical areas. The staff recommendation is that the city council vote to approve the updated city fee resolution as presented.
Councilmember Diener.
Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt a resolution establishing fee schedules for the Departments of Community Development and Public Works as presented.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Diener, second by Councilmember Lucarelli. Councilmember Diener, go ahead.
So I recall two meetings ago, I think maybe that we contracted for third-party review services. Does this affect those contracts, or is this after the fact?
Well, I think that those contracts they take a percentage of the plan review fee that we charge for plan review. There are circumstances where those consultants charge us hourly. And one of those circumstances is if they have to do a third set of plan revisions, then we are billing those costs and passing those through to the to the applicant. And so that is something new that is part of this contract, is to make sure that we are covering the cost of third and subsequent reviews, as well as changes to previously approved plans midway through a project. And I would add too that I reported at the work study meeting last week, I believe that from January 1st, 2021 through the end of March, I think we've spent about $340,000 on building code consultants. And so there is that's a significant cost to the city. And we are looking at adding FTEs in 2023 to cover the workload for plan review and inspection. So this sets us up to be able to have the staff that we need so that we're not relying on consultants going forward.
Or not maybe as heavily.
Right.
Other comments or questions? All right, you'll be voting on adoption of a resolution establishing fee schedules for the Department of Community Development and Public Works. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Hearing none, the resolution passes. We're to item F, adoption of a resolution authorizing the city to apply for 3 Recreation Conservation Office grants. Mr. Bond, this is you.
Yes, thank you. The city is pursuing 3 Recreation Conservation Office grants as part of the 2022 funding cycle that applications are due on May 3rd next month. In order to apply for a grant, the City Council is required to provide a resolution or authorization for each grant application. The 3 applications that the city is pursuing this year, and we talked about this again at work study last week, we are applying for a grant under the RCO Aquatic Lands Enhancement Account grant to construct the Port Orchard Waterfront Plaza and Enhancement Project. We are seeking $500,000 in RCO funding to put towards a project that will likely cost about $3.8 million. The second project is a refurbishment of the sport courts at Givens Field or Givens Park. The basketball court and the tennis courts we are proposing to replace with new sport court surfaces and to make those multi-use facilities. The basketball court would become basketball and futsal, which is a kind of a compact soccer field, and the tennis courts would become pickleball and tennis courts. And the project cost is estimated at $310,000 with a 50% match. So we would pay $155,000 and RCO would provide $155,000. The third and final project, Chris Hammer in Public Works is working on, and he is seeking an RCO Wwrp recreation grant under the trails category to build the Old Clifton Road separated pathway. And this is from McCormick Woods Drive to connect to the McCormick Village Park. The project is estimated to cost about $1.6 million, and we are proposing a 50% match as part of our application. So $800,000 in grant funding and $800,000 in city contribution towards that project. So the staff recommendation is that the City Council approve a resolution authorizing the mayor to sign an authorization for the RCO ALEA program, the RCO Youth Athletic Facilities program, and the RCO Wwrp program for the 3 projects I described.
Councilmember Clausen.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt a resolution authorizing the city's application for the RCO grant funding for the RCO ALEA Port Orchard Waterfront Plaza and Enhancement Project, the RCO YAF Givens Park Basketball and Tennis Court Remodeling Project, and the RCO WWRP Recreation Old Clifton Road Separated Pathway Project, and for the mayor to sign all necessary forms to effect the application.
Seconded.
We got Councilmember Clausen and all kinds of seconds, so I'll go with Councilmember Diener. Other comments or questions? Councilmember Clausen? And then I'll put Councilmember Rose, Pepe.
Yeah, I just think these are all great projects, and we keep our fingers crossed. And if we get one, it'll be wonderful. If we get all 3, it's going to be even better.
Yep, appreciate that. Councilmember Rose, Pepe.
Again, thanks to staff for applying for these grants. Again, things that not only enhance our growth, but these are all tied into basically all of our parks. which is great for the city as we move forward. So thank you again to staff.
Councilmember Diener.
I won't say too much, but the previous speakers hit it on the head. We're a growing community and people want these kinds of improvements and they expect them when they take part of our community. So I'm excited about these projects.
Yeah, yes, I agree. They expect them and they deserve them. This is all amenities that good communities have. Other comments or questions? Hearing none, you'll be voting on the adoption of a resolution authorizing the city to apply for 3 Recreation Conservation Office grants. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Is there anyone opposed? Hearing none, the resolution passes. We're to item G, approval of road closures for special event Mustangs on the Waterfront. Ms. Wallace, this is yours.
Yes, good evening, Mayor, Council. So city staff received a special event application for Mustangs on the Waterfront event scheduled for July 31st, 2022. The application states that the name of the event is Mustangs on the Waterfront. It's a car show, again, happening Sunday, July 31st, 2022. They prepared to set up the event at 5 a.m. and plan to open to the public at 7:30 a.m. until 5 p.m. Cleanup is to be completed by 5 p.m. Location of the event is to be downtown Port Orchard waterfront in parking lots 1, 2, 3, 4, and 7. In addition, there are proposing some road closures, which is Harrison Avenue, Frederick Street, which is from Bay Street, State Route 166 to the waterfront, as well as Sydney Avenue from Bay Street, State Route 166 to the waterfront. Pursuant to Port Orchard Municipal Code, Chapter 5.94.050, subsection 4, staff shall bring forward the special event application to the City Council for approval when the event requires a street or highway closure. And 2 things to note that staff did in accordance with Port Orchard Municipal Code 5.94.050, subsection 3, did post a public notice of the special event mentioning that parking lot and street closures will be closed and that any citizens are allowed to provide written comments regarding any impact to their property, business, or quality life. To date, staff has not received any comments meeting that criteria or received any comments in that matter. Application was submitted and routed to city departments as well as outside agencies, and they all support this application as presented. So with that, staff recommends approval of the application as presented.
Councilmember Lucarelli.
I move to approve the road closures identified in the application for the Mustangs on the Waterfront event taking place on Sunday, July 31st, 2022, as presented.
Seconded.
A motion by Councilmember Lucarelli, a second by Councilmember Trenary. Any questions or comments?
And just to point out that if you do have any questions, the applicant is here in the attendee section. I'd be happy to bring her over. And then for the members of the public, I can go ahead and share my screen for the outline of where the event's going to be if the council wishes.
Go ahead, Brandy.
Let me. Can you see the full map there?
Mhm.
There we go.
Okay.
Okay.
So here's the road closures here, one there, one there.
So it appears Mustangs are planning for a much bigger event than they've had in years past. They've typically just been over by the gazebo lot.
Correct.
Let's wish them well.
Yeah.
All right, any questions? All right. We'll prepare for the vote here. Let me get my screen back. And you'll be voting on the adoption of a resolution authorizing the city. Oh, nope, not where. This is for the approval of road closures for a special event, Mustangs on the Waterfront. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Hearing none, the road closure has been approved.
Thank you.
Okay. And we are to item H, which was added from the dais at the beginning of the meeting. And that item, let me go find that, is The resolution, item H, resolution regarding code enforcement abatement action at 4145 Ramsey Road Southeast. And this is you, Ms. Archer.
Thank you, Mayor. Council, before you this evening is a resolution authorizing the city to move forward with litigation related to ongoing nuisance conditions and dangerous structures occurring at 4145 Ramsey Road Southeast. You may recall the city has been pursuing a cleanup of the property since mid-2020. I believe prior to that time, the house was damaged in a tornado. At the time, it was identified in July of 2020. It had been vacant for many years due to the damage that I just referenced. An inspection of the building that occurred in August of 2020 by your building inspector revealed that the house was partially demolished, with nearly all the siding removed, doors and windows removed, roof sheathing removed, and floor structure largely missing and or collapsed. The abatement complaint and notice of hearing were served on the property's then owners in November of 2020, and a hearing was held in December of 2020. And for this hearing, and as for the previous hearing, the property owners appeared for the hearing. As a result of the hearing, the Director of Community Development issued findings of fact and an order requiring abatement. Since that time, additional photos have been taken of the property to show you the condition, and I will briefly show those so that we are all aware of the current condition. These were taken earlier this year. This is the exterior of the structure. You'll notice it is no longer secured against the elements or against inhabitants, but it does remain vacant. There are no current inhabitants. This is the rear of the structure. Another photo of the rear of the structure. You'll notice some of the window openings have been boarded up. However, some of the windows remain and are accessible. This is another photo of the front. And this shows the interior, showing the flooring removed. And you can see some remnants of the floor trusses. And I believe this is an accessory building that has equal code enforcement issues and some signs of habitation. And this is another shot of the interior. So those photos give you a sense of the conditions on the property currently. In January of 2021, the property was sold to new owners, and the city code enforcement officer took efforts to notify and successfully did notify the new owners of the conditions and the order. Those were served on that property owner. As I mentioned earlier, the city has the authority to abate nuisance conditions. Voluntary compliance has been unsuccessful. And the building official and the code enforcement officer have confirmed that the building is in danger of imminent collapse. And when that occurs, typically the only option is to remove the structure. There may be a way to remediate, but the order was to either remove the structure or remediate, and the city would pursue either through its abatement process. So again, you have the authority to abate utilizing the funds delegated for this purpose, and the code enforcement officer believes this is a case necessary to take that action. So the recommendation this evening is for a motion to authorize the mayor to continue legal action with the owners of this property, which again is 4145 Ramsey Road Southeast. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Councilmember Cacciardi.
Now, Mayor, for all the exact reasons and discussions we had earlier this evening on the property, I move to authorize the mayor or designee code enforcement officer and city attorney to move forward with a lawsuit for nuisance abatement.
Seconded.
We have a motion by Councilmember Cacciardi, second by Councilmember Clausen. Comments or questions? I think another number of statements were made earlier on the other property that also hold true on this property. All right, with no further questions, you'll be voting on the abatement on Ramsey Road. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Hearing none, I believe it's an ordinance, or it's approved regardless. So, all right, that's the end of our action items. Discussion items. Veterans Park is our standing item. And I will just share that at the Housing Kitsap meeting this morning, when we got to good of the order, Commissioner Wolf announced that Housing Kitsap this morning issued final notices to anyone in the park, and per their the HART program that they've approved, that it means that everyone needs to be out by 72 hours of this morning's notice. Commissioner Wolf also stated that services were being offered to everyone at the park that they've made contact with, so which is contrary to the email that I believe I forward all of you, that making other statements by Mr. Pressinger. So according to Commissioner Wolf, they are offering services. So I just want to give you that update. Charlie, you have anything additionally to add from talking to Katie?
Yeah, absolutely. Just two quick things. One, we understand the population of the park facing the encampment cleanup this week, which is set for Friday, is only 15 people at this point. The majority of folks have moved on voluntarily. And that the county has committed to continuing, as the mayor mentioned, with the cleanup, and has tasked contractors. The sheriff's deputies will be present. It will be a group effort that will occur on Friday. And then they've committed to daily inspections of the property following the cleanup event by county employees. The other point, a bit of less good news, Katie has confirmed, the code enforcement officer has confirmed that the RV that was at the south end of the park did in fact just move down the street to Tractor Supply, and it's in the parking lot at Tractor Supply. So she is currently working with the owner of that commercial space. It is now on private property, which is a different flavor of code enforcement. So she is working with them to try to remediate that issue now.
Okay, any questions? All right. Hopefully soon we'll stop talking about this one. Right, we're on to council committee reports. Economic Development and Tourism. I don't believe you met in April, but you have a May 16th meeting scheduled at 9:30 a.m. Utilities didn't meet in April either. They meet on May 10th, 5 p.m. Let's see here on, and as that meeting gets closer, if there's possibility like the equipment, hybrid equipment will be working on for the May 10th meeting. You may want to consider starting that meeting earlier, because I don't know that 5 o'clock will give you enough time if you're meeting remotely for the committee, then to travel to City Hall and get into the council chambers. So I'll try to communicate as much as I know as the equipment arrives next week and whether or not it's going to function properly. I know I went over to the Bremerton Council chambers and they were using their new equipment there yesterday, and we were 15 minutes late starting because they couldn't get the equipment to work right. So, but eventually we got there. Finance Committee, you met last week. Councilor McClosson, do you have a report?
Yes, I do. As usual, one of the first things we talk about is kind of the revenue side of the picture. And I'm happy to report that the sales tax is continuing to come in better than budgeted. We're actually year over year and year to date, we're up about a little over 5%. So it continues to chug along, and we're happy with that. In regards to the REIT funding, we did have a bit of a downturn in February. So our year over year changes year to date, we're actually down about 1.84%, which, we're talking $8,500. So it's not like a major issue. So from that standpoint, it all looked fine. We also talked about the fund balances, and all of which are continuing to be strong and healthy. We talked briefly about an IT project that was initially planned for next year, but the staff is contemplating moving forward with the replacement of some servers, primarily related to some retirements that are being projected, and being able to implement the servers while we have our current staff there that is the most knowledgeable of the current system. We talked at length about the fee resolution, which was approved tonight, and you heard last week at the work study. We also talked a little bit about some facility needs that police departments experience and what they're planning to do. We talked a bit about personnel, staffing, potential expansion in staffing, and some changes that are going on. I mentioned the retirement in the IT, possibly a shifting with the sergeant and adding a sergeant to the staffing level. So I'm sure that will be coming in future meetings, but I think that pretty well covers pretty much everything we covered. Jay or Sean, did I miss anything you want to add?
I think you got it.
Okay.
All right. Transportation Committee met this evening. Councilmember Chang, do you have a report?
Yeah, we talked about many little things. We spoke about an update to the transportation improvement project list, and that was going to include Sydney Road sidewalk improvements, also improvements to Pottery Avenue, Bay Street between Geiger to Frederick, and also street lighting. We also spoke about sidewalks going along Sydney and Glenwood for a project now called Haven Townhomes, formerly Ruby Creek. And then we just sort of touched on a couple of different items, such as hopefully possible fixes to traffic at Bethel and Lund by improving the lights, and also possibly monitoring the lights on Sedgwick. This is not something that would be free, but it's something that might help with the traffic on Sedgwick between the freeways and Lowe's. And that was it.
Yeah, and following up on that, our traffic consultant did a body of work for us and identified potentially some modifications that could be made to the timing of lights and putting more modern signal controls potentially at the interchange and at Lowe's. And so we're likely going to see an additional task order from them to the tune of about $8,000 for them to dive deeper into that and provide us specific modifications that could happen. And then in particular, since two of those cabinets on the interchange are the state's and one is ours at the Lowe's light, that we probably want to make that part of our lobbying effort next year to get the state to help pay for their portion of it, because it's likely about a $300,000 project that I think we would happily put $100,000 to if it moved traffic better there along that section of Sedgwick Road. So let's see, moving on here, Land Use Committee. Nope, excuse me. Chimes and lights. How could I skip chimes and lights?
How could you?
Oh,
December
no.
3rd, a Scottish Christmas in person downtown. We are actually closing the road a bit later so that businesses, of course, can stay open and have their Christmas traffic. Road closures are expected to start at 2. It will be the main section of Bay Street to Sydney, City Hall to Sydney, and then the portion of Sydney to the waterfront. As we were working on details of infrastructure issues, porta potties, that kind of thing. You'll be seeing it before you sometime for approval. Please vote yes. And we are going to have the event go all the way down to the gazebo and Waterfront Park. That's where Santa will be. The band, again, we've talked about that, will be playing. We're looking to have pipers. Scottish Christmas has to have their bagpipers. We encourage all of you to wear your kilts. I know some of you actually own kilts. Yes, so please, or if you don't have one, pick one up before the event. So we will probably have the Irish dancers performing, and all of the groups will be, the choral groups will be back. The library is going to have a magic show. We probably are going to be resurrecting the pet parade. It's going to be a wonderful celebration. Again, you'll be getting more details, but we're moving forward with that and letting everybody know in the September, October billing cycles, advertising it there and trying to get more bang for our buck. So here we are moving forward. We're very excited and we'll update you in another month. Thank you. Next meeting is May 16th.
All right, lively update. We've got to land use. Was there a meeting for land use? It was last week, I believe, wasn't it?
Yeah, there was a meeting last Wednesday, and I was the substitute chair because the chair was having an operation, I guess. So one issue that came up before us was that it has been observed that people have been living in recreational vehicles on their property. With the end of the COVID moratorium, code enforcement has started to move forward with advising people that they cannot live in the RV on their property. The committee was split on revisiting the current resolution on recreational vehicles. We also spoke about the wireless communication facilities, and I believe that's coming to us in May. There may be some revisions there. There was a discussion on annexation, and Nick, I don't know if you have the map ready. If not, I actually have two maps, and this is the annexation that we've discussed on the lower end of Bethel. There are a couple of options. Am I able to share my screen?
And Councilmember Chang, I do have the preferred, the recommended map ready to share if you'd like me to share it.
Okay, yeah, why don't you share that? And the committee was fully behind the recommended option. There are two options, and Nick can probably explain it better than I.
Yeah, so I think most of the council members have seen this at one committee or another, but we've been talking about an annexation using the interlocal agreement method that was passed by the legislature within the last couple of years. We had sent an initial proposal to the county just as a starting place for outlining what boundaries could be. They came to us with a counter proposal, and based on the counter proposal, we are making another counter proposal that actually takes some of the areas we requested out. We're really focused on the main area is the Bethel South Corridor, basically to the limits of the UGA at SR 16. And our big fear here is that as we're going through the next round of comprehensive plan updates, we're worried that there is still too much land supply in the south end of the county and that the UGA could be contracted. And so this is the best way for the city to preserve what at least I've heard the city council say previously is a priority for us, is to not let the Bethel South urban growth area be contracted. And so we would annex that into the city. We would also pick up a couple of areas west of Highway 16 along Sydney Avenue Southwest, or Sydney Road Southwest, where there's a gap in the right of way where you go through a couple 100 feet of county before you go back into the city. There's one property left at the industrial park that hasn't been annexed. And then there's a little piece on Glenwood Road that hasn't been annexed. And one of the county's counter proposals was they would like us to take Glenwood Road along this frontage. And normally I wouldn't recommend taking a roadway, but Stetson Heights has just made improvements to this frontage. There's additional intersection improvements needed at McCormick Woods Drive based on what was presented at the Transportation Committee tonight. And so controlling that right of way does two things. It allows us to have a single jurisdiction controlling the improvements to the intersections. And also the county has so far refused to lower speed limits in that area. And so this gives us control over the speed limit to try to make things a little bit safer for pedestrians on these new sidewalk facilities that have been installed. Finally, there is one small addition at the top of the map. We found that there are 4 properties up here that are on city water, but are in the urban growth area. And so they're hit with a pretty high premium for water rates because they're outside of the city. And if they annex, this is actually a benefit to them in the form of a reduced water rate. Geographically, these areas are still up on the hillside, not down at the bottom of Arnold Creek. And so they are all accessed from the Perry Farragut area of the city and are kind of right there on the backside of the high school. And so we suggested including these as well. The areas that were taken out were along Mile Hill and Mitchell, where the school administration buildings are. And there's a couple of reasons. Number one, the county is doing a transportation project on Lund right now. And if we annex this area, we would have to redraw the lines because we would be taking in part of their project. And then we would have to figure out how to co-permit the project and also cost share potentially in improvements. We'd prefer to see the county complete those. And they also asked us to take a little bit more in the way of multifamily development here. And we are reluctant to take a population that's going to push us ever closer to that washed out threshold where we become responsible for the state highways. So we decided that it was probably best as a staff recommendation to the land use committee. And I think the land use committee, the two of them present, agreed, was to remove that area from the proposed annexation and really focus on Bethel South and these few little pieces that are here and there.
Those apartments too, present some challenges for our police department too. And with our current staffing levels, to bite off more in the way of calls for service in our police department, I don't think would be fair to those residents or our current residents. So that was some of the logic also in dialing this back to a smaller scale and a potential annexation. Any questions about that? Everybody comfortable with that? What our counter proposal to the county? Okay.
All right. Thank you.
There were just two other items that we discussed in the meeting. One was revising manufactured home design standards to allow a new manufactured home to be permitted, if that's the right word. Also, there's a discussion on dwelling units and whether or not we would want to drop the owner occupancy clause from that. And the two of us didn't quite agree, so that'll probably be an issue coming for fuller discussion to the whole council. And that was it.
Okay, thank you for your report. Lodging tax, anything to report? We gave away the money last meeting, so.
Nope, everything was reported on, and we'll reconvene as we get into late summer.
Okay. Sewer advisory meets on May 18th, and outside agencies, I don't have any report. Housing Kitsap continues to get its house in order with audits and everything. That, still challenges there, but we're in much better shape than we were. And that board meeting was this morning. To the mayor's report, as I'm required to report on changes to personnel policies, and the court administrator's job description hadn't been updated in 6 years, and Human Resources recently undertook that process and updated terminology and duties to reflect her current duties. And let's see here. Gave a report to the Public Facilities District last night about the community center. Same report that slideshow you guys saw it last night. Dean Kelly and I went over, and they were very pleased with what they saw. They also approved the amended ILA that authorizes that payment for that contract that you guys approved a few meetings back. You'll see that LILA at our next council meeting. I was a little disappointed that those design dollars cost an additional $280,000, and the executive director encouraged me to ask for those additional funds, and the board didn't agree with him. So they'll be coming out of the $9.5 million we have for construction, but it doesn't, they just, at this point, they don't want, there's other projects behind us that haven't been funded, and they haven't, well, their revenue is coming in very good. Who knows what the future holds. So we didn't want to set a precedence at this point with authorizing additional dollars beyond beyond the 12 million they've already allocated us. So doesn't mean I won't ask again. Let's see here. I'm going to do this once in a while. I had staff pull some minutes from 50 years ago, April 1972. I was at East Port Orchard Elementary, and let's see, there were some familiar names in the minutes. Mayor Paul Powers, and Paul Powers Park, and Carolyn Powers, his husband. Council members Lee Caldwell, and he served on the PUD's board for a number of years after being a city council member. Bob Geiger, I think we all know Bob Geiger, Warren Van Zee, and a fire chief named Weatherall. Now, I doubt that was our Mayor Weatherall. John, was that a relative of Mayor Weatherall's?
It was actually Mayor Weatherall's dad.
Okay,
Oh,
well,
wow.
so he was mentioned in the minutes. That evening, the city engineer reported on a project to install a fountain at the end of Sydney Avenue. So right in front of the library there, I think about 10 years ago, we took it out after it got hit so many times by vehicles turning around down there, and we put that compass rose in. The council,
but it
on
got
this,
washed a number of times, Mayor, because people were putting soap in it often. So it was
we
a pretty clean fountain for a
It
while.
was a clean fountain. Okay.
Mhm.
Council members were also encouraged to attend a meeting in the Bremerton Council chambers the following week to discuss the distribution of the 2% liquor profits from the state. So evidently there was somehow the liquor taxes were appropriated at some meeting in Bremerton. And 75 years ago, April 1947, it appears our city council only had 3 members at the time. At least there was only 3 members in attendance that evening. And they awarded and approved an expense for $7,767.86 for architecture services related to the new town hall. So that had to have been the building before City Hall, which is I think it was a fire station with city offices up above it, I think, from the pictures I've seen of it. And just 75 years ago, $7,700, and community center design is costing $1 million today. So probably similar sized buildings. The city also increased its liability insurance limits at that meeting from $50,000 to $100,000. And other expenses approved that evening were $1.55 for carbon paper for the city clerk. And they authorized the purchase of 2 books for the library. Now, books, it appears, were expensive because those 2 books cost $19.13.
Wow.
And a dozen citizens came that lived on Lund Avenue, just outside the city. I think that would be up there around Starbucks, where Starbucks is now. And they wanted the city to extend water service out in that area. And the city said, we don't provide water service outside the city, but you're welcome to form a water district. So I'm not sure if that's how West Sound happened, but that's what the city and council encouraged them to do. So anyway, that was John.
Let me add one thing to that, actually, too. One council member, Lee Caldwell, was also mayor.
At one time. Okay.
For 1 year, when Mayor Paul Powers retired, the council appointed Lee to fill the remainder until an election, and that's actually how I got appointed into Lee's seat. When Lee was promoted to mayor, it created a vacancy on the council, and I was appointed to that. And the other is the original town hall. If it's the one that I was part of, yes, there were city offices on the upper stories, as well as at one time it was a courtroom. At one time it was the city library, and it evolved to the city council chambers before it was demolished to build a new city hall.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. All right. How about staff reports? Now that I've hijacked the meeting here, Mr. Bond, do you have anything to share?
Just real quickly, I know I've touched on this a couple of times over the last few months, and the KRCC population and employment target setting is reaching hopefully a conclusion. We have sent a proposal to PSRC for their comments. We came pretty close to hitting what PSRC wanted us to. In those numbers, Port Orchard would be growing by 10,500 residents and 5,400 jobs. And so as soon as we hear back from PSRC, That will move forward through the Plan Paul and KRCC board approval process and will become our targets for the 2024 comprehensive plan. So for those of you involved in KRCC, stay tuned for news on that here in the near future. And that's all I've got.
All right, thank you. Ms. Lund.
Well, it was kind of appropriate that you read a little bit about history, because what I wanted to inform the council of tonight is that tomorrow is a historic day for the city of Port Orchard. At 8 a.m. tomorrow morning, we will receive our 100th employee.
Wow.
So we have grown and continue to grow. We will be at 100 employees for a whopping 5 days, because we have a retirement coming in very early May. But we're also coming into our seasonal hiring, and we have many vacancies that we've got candidates at all stages of the process. So it won't be long and we'll be back to 100, but we will have 100 employees as of tomorrow.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. Clerk Wallace?
I don't have anything to add tonight.
Okay. Thanks for attending. Ms. Archer?
Nothing to add. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Crocker?
I have nothing to add. Thank you.
All right. Chief Brown?
Yeah, actually, I have a couple things. Just wanted to let council know that we're continuing to work on hiring. We have 5 in background. We have 1 that we anticipate starting in early July. But I found that out today, and I also found out today that we have a retirement coming up in about a month. So right now it's 1-to-1. I will let you know that as we continue to remain busy, last month in March, we had over 1,300 calls for service just from community initiated 911 calls. That's no proactive activity included in that number. That's the highest. I only pulled numbers back to 2017. That's the highest we've ever had. I also want to give some big credit to our officers, and including Detective Deathridge and Sergeant Brandon. Detective Deathridge, this is her last weekend. We did make 2 arrests in the vigilante shooting that was related to a stolen car, and they charged both with drive-by shooting. We arrested them on Friday. They were arraigned on Monday, and they were both put on $100,000 bail. So a pretty significant case, and very proud of our officers and our detectives and the work that they did. And I thought that would be good to share with everyone. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Chief. All right. I think I got everybody. We're to our second citizen comment period. If there's anybody wishing to address the council, and I got a Gregor that's raised his hand. Brandy, if you could bring him over, and you've got 3 minutes to address the city council.
Thank you, Mayor. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
All right. For the record, my name is Gregor Markuson Fjellrev. I moved to the city in August of last year. I'm very glad I did. Regarding Visit Kitsap's presentation, as an active user of multiple social media platforms, those including Twitter, Discord, Reddit, and others, I can offer a few more detailed insights into Visit Kitsap's analysis of social media-based city promotion for tourism generation that essentially further elaborate on an analysis that I mostly agree with. I must advise against TikTok as a platform for city-branded anything due to TikTok's volatile nature as a platform, as well as its lack of security on an operational end, and just generally, as social medias go, being one of the bad ones, ditto for Facebook. It is also the case that Twitter is about to have a lot of users jumping ship due to Elon Musk's accepted bid to purchase the platform and the subsequent backlash. Though I hope that the FTC or Supreme Court will step in and halt the sale on ethics grounds, that's pretty wishful thinking. It is also the case that Twitter's own algorithms are extremely hostile towards arts-based anything, as it actively works to bury artists of all conventional disciplines. I say this as a hobby carpenter and landscaper, as well as a published author and musician and professional actor, burying them under a massive pyramid schemes, Ponzi schemes, and pump and dump schemes in the name of pure revenue for the platform, thus abandoning morality as a whole. I do agree with Visit Kitsap's analysis suggesting Pinterest and Instagram as optimal platforms for promoting city-branded arts and culture, as their own algorithms boost art and culture-related items, effectively making it a polar opposite of Twitter's outright hostility towards art. Regarding the property at 515 Perry Avenue North, I also support the initiative to continue the legal action against negligence. Having taken a look at the documents and pictures provided, the proprietor is listed as a Bremerton address, leading me to believe that this is just a classic case of an out-of-town property owner leaving the property negligent, which honestly helps nobody. In the fairly unlikely event that the city must seize the property due to negligence, I'd be willing to take a look at it from a restorative or fixer-upper standpoint as a garage and backyard trained carpenter and landscaper. From what I can see, the property can absolutely be fixed up, made safe, and generally improved to a substantial degree. Regarding the property at 4145 Ramsey Road Southeast, the structure is definitely in danger of imminent collapse from the perspective of a carpenter and landscaper. Repair is possible, but it would be expensive, and I would recommend that an incentive be offered to take on the project of repairing and refurbishing the structure to code standards, such as awarding the property to a given fixer-upper and or reimbursement of fixing costs up to a given amount, but I'm afraid I cannot advise on that amount at this time. Thank you for your time, everybody.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Anyone else wish to address the council? You please use the raise your hand feature. One last call. All right, we'll end the second citizen comment period. And is there anything for the good of the order, council members?
Did you forget Nick?
Nope. How could I forget Nick? I forgot chimes and lights, but I didn't forget Nick. He talked about, I did call on you, didn't I, Nick?
You did. I talked about population and employment targets.
Oh, that's right. All right. No, so my memory was correct. I just couldn't remember what he said. All right. Anything else for the good of the order? Have a good evening. We'll see you in a few weeks.
Bye, everybody.
Good night.